you are currently in undergraduate? I show of hands. How many of you, undergraduate meaning tertiary? No. How many have just graduated from college or university? Okay. So that's most of us. What are the rest of you? Give me a flavor. Give me a flavor. What are you doing? I left school 20 years ago. Is that anybody's story? And I'm still wondering where is it that I want to go? Okay. I'm sure many of you are wondering why am I walking around with this crown on my head, right? Okay. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a queen. Yes, I am. A queen. I call myself, or I have been called by some that I've worked with, the queen of turnaround. The queen of turnaround. And I guess for me, when my good friend Lamade, we were partners together at Phillips Consulting some years ago, and I learned so much from her, work content and spiritually, awesome lady. So just give Lamade Belogun a round of applause. So when she told me about this session, and I said, wow, what is it that I might be able to connect with, and what has the Lord led me to be able to share with you today? Because I'm one of those people, you give me a microphone, I can talk forever. So I said, I need to be able to fit it into this 20-minute slot, and let me make it punchy, and let me make it something that's relevant. So what I will talk about today is I will call you into a reinvention convention. Reinvention convention. All right? And I'll connect the dots in a minute. All right? When you look, I don't know if some of you got to see my bio, but to give you a sense, I'm driven today by the fact that, one, you might be able to tell from my diction, I'm not originally from Nigeria. That I know of. I'm a Black American. So Middle Passage kind of messed up my African origins, right? When I got on the ship, I just knew where I ended up. I didn't know where I came from. So I am a Black American. And I don't want my accent to be a challenge to you hearing me today, okay? So if at any time my message is not getting through because of the way I speak, just do this for me. That means rewind the tape, and I will gladly rewind because I'm here in service to you. Maybe the biggest thing that I would share is that me and the last speaker do have something in common. Our first degree, so I'll tell you a little about myself. No, I'm not going to tell you about myself first. I'm going to tell you why I want to talk to you and what I want to inspire you about. Then I'll tell you about me. I've been in Nigeria for 11 years. I'm a Niger wife, married to a Nigerian. And I've worked in several different environments. One thing that I continue to see in fresh graduates and those who've been in the career for a while is they feel like that degree that they have defines them. They feel like, I've met many people, and I'm sure that's not true for anybody in the room, but just in case, you got into your major because of jam or what your parents wanted you to be. Can anybody relate with that? Does anybody have a degree that their mom and daddy wanted and not what they wanted? How many of you, because of where you placed in a certain score or whatever school you got in, I'm here today to tell you that it's not where you come from, it's where you are going. Not where you come from. So when I talk to you today, my story hopefully will allow you to see how I can claim turnaround queen in the work that I do and myself, my own life. So here's a little about Patrenia. How many of you have seen the American show Extreme Home Makeover? Extreme Home Makeover. This is a show Guys, so high energy. So that's what the slide is all about, extreme home makeover. And on this show, you go into somebody's house, and their house is all broken down, where some area doesn't work anymore. When they had 2 kids, it was fine, but now they have 5, and they want all 5th. And they have a long list of all the things they want to change. Have you seen that show? Yeah. And then what happens? What happens next in that show? They send them away. They go and do something where they can not be focused on that house or their problems. And when they come, and then they spend, a week or whatever, ripping it apart, rebuilding it, having a plan, having a design, putting it together, looking at the specifications that that family has given them based on what they want. And then when they come back, it's this big reveal, right? They park the bus in front of the house, have a big crowd, and then when the bus moves out of the way, everyone cheers, and they have had an extreme home makeover. And everybody's in tears, say, oh my God, I never thought this was possible. I believe that we can do that with our lives. I believe that oftentimes where we start, it fit us at the time. It fit us. And we were content. But it's something about growth. It's something about, being restless sometimes that helps us to see that that's not who I am anymore. I have outgrown this circumstance, or I have outgrown this situation, and I'm yearning for more. I have some specifications in mind of what I'd like to see, but I might not know exactly what it is. But I know that it's bigger, I know that it's blue, I know that it's this. I may not know exactly, but it ain't where I am right now. Okay? Can anybody relate to that? Yes. You can relate to that. Okay, so here's Patrenia, that show This Is Your Life. I am originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So in the States, that's way in the South. All right? Youngest of 3. My mother died when I was 13, so it left me and my dad and my older siblings were away in school. So I kind of started off maybe with a different path. But I remember when I was 9 or 10, wanting to be a mathematician. I just loved math. I mean, any problem I could solve, I figured that math was really, really cool. By the 7th grade, I remember wanting to be a marketing executive. I looked at a show, Bewitched, where the husband always did advertising stuff, and I found that I just have a gift for that. You give me any kind of whatever, I can come up with a snazzy kind of saying. And I can do it without even working at it. I love that whole marketing thing. Well, I was also a musician. 9 years playing my horn, went all over the place with all of that experience. And what else did I do? Oh, when I was in college, I founded a theater organization, okay? Black Repertory Theater. So, what might you think my first degree is in? Theater arts. I was tempted, but not quite. What do you think my first degree might be? Law. I love it. My first degree is industrial engineering. So with all of that passion, with all of those gifts, I listened to the high school counselor who said, well, you're in gifted math, you're in gifted science, you're in this. You're good at math and science, therefore you should major in engineering. And I said, oh, okay. Isn't it funny how at 16, 17 years old, we're expected to choose something that might guide our whole lives? Somehow I don't think that's fair. That's why I'm really glad that we are allowed to reinvent ourselves. All right? Studies show that people change careers. It used to be 5 to 6 times. I now see some statistics, easy for me to say, some statistics that say up to 11 times people re-career. Okay? So my story is that my first couple of jobs, I was building motorcycles. So as an industrial engineer, what we do is we optimize, integrate systems, build things, make things. So I spent 14 years in manufacturing in the United States. You ever heard of Harley Davidson motorcycles? So my story is simply this. When I walked into the York facility in 1993, it's our biggest plant, and I was hired. I had no idea that I was the first black female they had ever hired as an engineer. Now here's how I got a clue. I walked out on the floor and I was on the line and I was looking at this, looking at that, and this lady came and started touching my skin. Ooh, are you in it? You know, it was like she hadn't seen anyone like me before. I said, what kind of place is this? But the testimony is, do you think I would have gone if I would have known? So sometimes God puts us in spaces where he lets us be ignorant of things so that fear won't kick in. I walked up in there like I owned that place. I had no idea that they never had anything like me before. And I always call it my packaging. My packaging was different than everybody else's. So in this experience, I had to learn, number one, I am an industrial engineer, which means that I can make almost anything. But I was sitting beside guys who had been riding motorcycles their whole lives. They could take it apart, put it back together in their sleep. I knew I could never ever meet that standard. And by the way, I didn't want to. I didn't want to mess up my nails. So I had to find a way to distinguish myself in that environment. And what I began to see is that, well, one, I was replacing 2 white guys that had been fired. And when I looked at the quality of their work, it was spot on technically. They knew exactly what to do. And the answers were really right. I go out on the floor, that makes sense. And I would see these engineers coming in all angry. You know, those people on the floor, they don't know what they were doing. Da, da, da. One thing I realized early on, and you might want to take note of this, that the best answer may not be the most right answer. It's the answer that you can get people mobilized, inspired, and motivated enough to implement. Why do I say that? Anytime you're trying to do something different, and a lot of our problems were, how can we make more? How do we keep downtime? Bikes were $20,000, so that's like what? You're paying $4 million for a recreational vehicle. You put your money down, wait 2 years. 2 years? So production was very, very, very important. So long story short is, you must identify where the power is in an organization. A lot of things they don't teach you in college. They don't teach you corporate in college, do they? But when you go into that corporate environment, you need to understand where the power is. And very clearly at Harley Davidson, the power was in production and the supervisors, not in the engineers. Right? That's why these guys are getting frustrated and fired. Number 2, I need to realize how to take these guys, all their intellectual, technical work, and translate it in a way that will tune in to the needs of the power base. And we're the production people. So instead of saying this station is 32% utilized and they have idle time and da-da-da-da, I need to be able to say, see, this guy's not doing anything. Yeah, see, the parts are all over the floors, So people need abstract ways to understand problems. So my point is, in that particular situation, I identified that I needed to persuade production. Whatever solution we came up with, no matter how suboptimal, if all of us were behind it, when any bump came in the road, they were going to push it through. So understanding what you can use to distinguish yourself, understanding the power base, and figuring out what language you need to use to speak to that audience. All of those are tools for reinvention. Does that make sense? Okay, so as you may have imagined, how did I end up here? Now, technology. Let's see if it's my friend today. No, it's not. Let's see. I may need some help, Ezekiel. There we go. So, in terms of how did I get here today, I'm married, like I said, to a Nigerian. We met undergrad, thank you. We were both in engineering school. And when I met him, my husband had a vision. I love that about him. He was a civil engineer, and I remember how we used to ride around the neighborhood, ride around in Raleigh where we were in school, and he would say, baby, one day I'm going to show our children structures that I built. One day, look at this bridge, I'm going to do stuff like this. And da-da-da-da-da. And I kind of had a bias for, a foreign band because I'm an adventurer. I like to experience different things. So, for our first 17 years of marriage, we were in Pennsylvania because my job took me there. And then something happened. I think is it Nigerian men or specifically Igbo or something. It's like a timer goes off at a certain point in their life and they want to come back to Nigeria, right? Yeah, the homing signal said, come home, come home. So we made a family decision to make sure that our children were not strangers in their father's land. Okay? What's the neat thing? I spent 14 years completely in manufacturing. How much manufacturing is done here? Huh? I was in 6 figures in manufacturing. I was a senior manager in my early 30s in manufacturing. I said, baby, we going where? Okay, I'm with you. Yeah. Okay, I understand the higher reason. But the reality of it was manufacturing in Nigeria was not going to meet some of our needs. We have 5 kids, so we have needs, okay? So, I thank God that, here's my next message to you. I started as an engineer. I worked in this environment, manufacturing. But, all that fun stuff I used to do that made my heart sing and wow, music and entertainment, all that stuff, it wasn't in my full-time job. But God still needed for me to express that. My need to do service, I still needed to express it. So while I was working a full-time job, having baby after baby, that's one thing we have in common with these 5 kids, working and going to school, I made time for something that did make my heart sing, and that was organizing a Black History Quiz Bowl. It's a competition in Pennsylvania. 10 years, 1 award, awesome. Kids learn it though, because I believe if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. And you really need to have pride in yourself. So that was something very important to me. Now, I did that for free, went out, made all kinds of, raised money through my sorority actually. And it was one of our biggest, most successful projects. But guess what? I did get promoted somewhat as an engineer, but where my big break came from was from my leaders in manufacturing recognizing what I was doing in the community. Then all of a sudden I was, I got community relations, I got to learn how to run foundations, I got to learn how to do video productions, corporate marketing. Oh, they got me training. I found, wow, I was building plants, but I learned getting in between people's ears was a lot more powerful than just brick and mortar. Here's an example. As an engineer, we can calculate if we build something, what it will produce. But when you get inside people's consciousness, inside their brain, inside their heart, it's between the ears. There is no way to measure how far they can go. So it was while I was working, my title was engineer, that I had all of these experiences that nobody was paying me for, by the way. But guess what? I changed the environment. I would jump, but I don't know how strong the stage is. When I came over to Nigeria, all those things that I had done in the volunteer mode were now valid skills, transferably, that I could claim. So here's my message to you. Don't feel like you can only claim those skills that you got paid for. Look for opportunities to express your gifts that God has given you. And through that expression, you're blessing somebody, then the blessing comes back. I mean, it's amazing how God works this thing. You give, you get, you give, you get. You're sharing, you're growing. And it's preparing you for that next best thing. So let me just share something with you, just by way of a story. On the screen, you see the cocoon and the butterfly. So I'm going to take my queen off now, because I'm finished with that phase. I think I'm Do I still look good? Yeah. Is this nice? Yeah. So repackaging here. All right. There was a little boy, and he was walking through the park, and he came across, was like, you know how cocoons, a butterfly cocoon? But now it's a caterpillar first, isn't it? Yes, it's a caterpillar. And then it might crawl up on a tree and freeze. And you start having a cocoon grow around it. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? Well, this little boy found the cocoon after it had fallen out of the tree and it was on the ground. And he felt very passionate about taking care of it. So much so that he picked it up, took it home, put it in a jar, and put a lid on it. And every day he was waiting for the cocoon, looking at the cocoon, see how it would change. And each day he would see it just moving, like it was fighting inside of the cocoon. And I tell you what, he got a little impatient. He said, you know, I really want to see this beautiful butterfly. So he opened up the jar, took his knife, and what do you think he did? He what? He cut the cocoon. And what do you think happened? The butterfly emerged, and it was beautiful. But each time it tried to fly, it just hit the walls. It didn't have enough strength to fly. He was so upset. He was like, wait a minute, you know, I was looking forward to this beautiful butterfly. So he took it to his neighbor who was like a biology teacher or something. And the teacher told him something very, very important. He said, you should not cut the cocoon prematurely, because it's through the struggle in the cocoon that you get the strength to fly. So a lot of times when we think we're going through it and we think we just can't take anymore, what else is going to happen? Think of yourself as being in the cocoon and knowing that one day you will emerge as a butterfly. And when you're in that phase of your life and you're flying the butterfly, it's just like that house that's perfect size for you now. You'll go back through it again and realize you need to drop the eggs, become a caterpillar, become the cocoon, and go into your butterfly phase again. That's the essence of reinventing yourself. I think for me, in coming, what was my butterfly and how did I build my strength to fly? Let me know how I'm doing on time, because like I said, I can talk. Okay. Just let me know when I have 5 minutes, please. So, how did I build my strength? So I told you when I came here that there was nothing in the field that I had worked in, but I had a feeling. You know, I got a feeling, ooh, ooh, ooh. That's how I felt. I felt like, you know what? God, you're giving me another opportunity. Because I call the U.S. my last life. I call this my next life. I packaged up all those little news articles, all that stuff I had done in my volunteer. I packed it all up. And I put it into a binder. I called it my parachute. That was my code word for it, because I knew that was going to help me to have an excellent landing. It was my parachute. I went into an interview here, and well, you know, Americans, we have our own little vocabulary that maybe we don't share with the rest of the world. But when I started opening up my notebook to the interviewer, she said, "This doesn't look like a resume, it looks more like a compendium." I said, "Lord, is compendium a good word? or is that a bad word? Compendium, okay." So, you try to test a little bit in context to see what she was talking about. But essentially, I left no room for anyone to doubt my evidence on my competence. I came prepared now. I wasn't leading with an industrial engineer with no. I came with evidence. So another one of my favorite sayings is, "In God we trust, all others bring evidence." So I had my little compendium, thick binder. But I had, so when I finish a project at work, I get whoever the sponsor was, when they're in a good mood and happy about it, you give them to write a recommendation saying how wonderful you did. And if you are not persuasive enough to get them to do it, here's another trick I learned early in my career. This is worth noting. I know we do emails and everything now, and that's still fine. I kind of still like the pen and paper sometimes. If you gave me an opportunity to stretch myself and work on something, I will write you a thank you note. In that thank you note, I will thank you for the opportunity to work 20 hours additional each week. Thank you for the opportunity to learn this new skill. Thanks for the opportunity to save X amount of money. Thank you for, I'm thanking you. But I'm creating a record of what I did now, aren't I? Evidence. Think creatively. What are ways? Because a lot of times, and I'm in my 40s. I won't tell you where I'm in my 40s, but I'm in my 40s now. And even now I'm learning something new. I have just learned that fourth quarter doesn't count at Shell for performance. Fourth quarter doesn't count. You need to have your evidence by the third quarter because all of the performance reviews are done in November. Silly me, it took me 7 years, but now I get it. You need to be open to opportunities to learn and know that it never stops, all right? I just left the dentist and I was coming out and looking at my BlackBerry, and my cousin had sent me an email from the States. The essence of it is, we have an 83-year-old aunt who probably this time last year didn't know how to text. She had a little, phone. All she knew how to do was answer it. Okay, somebody actually had to help her to dial, to call. Well, this cousin has bought her a Samsung Galaxy. It's got YouTube and everything on it now. And my Aunt Mary is stepping up to the plate, 83 years old, and learning how to do everything. Okay? Now, she calls YouTube moving people on her phone. She don't know what to call it, but I tell you what, she knows how to use it, and she's not afraid to try. What I've observed in life is there are many people procrastinating, waiting because they don't think they'll get it perfectly, while there's somebody right beside them failing, but learning and growing all the time. Don't be that person that's afraid to try something. Be like Aunt Mary and step out. 2 quick concepts I just want to leave with you. One is my daughter taught me. So our kids range from age 23 to age 7. So our 23-year-old daughter is a biomedical engineer in Merck. And she came across this concept, and again, teaching moms. So when you make investments in those kids, don't be surprised when they come back and they can out-talk you, out-teach you, out whatever. Just sit back and, yay, thank you, God. So she was sharing with me, she said, Mom, in your career, you've done this industrial engineering. When you came to Nigeria, you worked in a bank. I managed everything non-banking in one of those new generation banks. And it was awesome. So I'm going to tell you 2 quick jokes, too. Oh, let me finish the career, then I'll come back. So then I left the bank after 1 year. I said that was enough for me. I had 1 year. I went to Phillips Consulting. That's how Lamade and I met. I was a partner there in learning and organizational development. And I was there for 2.5 years. Absolutely loved the work. Loved it. But when I got the opportunity to move to Shell, to now, I was head of infrastructure services, so I managed all of the residential and office assets for Lagos and Abuja. So I had about $700 million of contract value underneath me. So I had commercial responsibilities, technical, and customer service. All right, you see how that mixes with my career? I got an MBA along the way, and I majored in marketing and HR. Okay, so this is kind of things. So when I went to Phillips, I realized that a large part of my income was going to be determined by how well I could communicate. So I was doing sessions, people smiling, nodding their heads, and then I would test for understanding, and it was like, huh? So I realized that my accent was getting in the way. I was using examples of baseball, getting around the plate, and people looking at me like, huh? You know. So again, tuning into your audience. But this is what I did. So again, I went and looked at Africa Magic. I said, you know what? I will not be outdone. I'm in this new place. I need to eat. My kids need to eat. My husband need to eat. Let me figure out how do I communicate. So I became a little Africa Magic. Ah, jazz. That's what that is. Oh, okay. Waka waka. That's what that is. Okay. Because when I first came, I was trying to drive myself because I was determined I would not be locked up on Sunday. I got my driver to teach me how to drive this stick. So going up the Falmouth Bridge, you know, boom, 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 boom. And when you try to get in gear, my kids would hide in the back of the seat. And I was like, these people are so nice. Everyone's waving at me. Why are these people waving? Oh, this is a wonderful place. And it was waka, waka, waka. So now, it's all about context. Last but not least, let me just leave you with what we have on the screen is a ladder, traditional model that we go up straight. So again, what my daughter taught me was careers are like T's. A T can be wide, right? And not so deep. Means you've done a lot of different things, but you may not have depth. So that's the risk you run by being wide, is that you may not be deep. Or you can be very narrow and be very deep. You're an expert. You know everything there is about it. When I understood that metaphor, that helped me to understand myself. So I'll share with you what I think the secret is. You need to be wide, so flexible like I've been in my career, but have at least one or two things that you're deeper than anybody else in the room. They call it jack of all trades, master of at least one. Okay? Be a go-to person for something. So last but not least, we climb the ladder, but Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook tells us that it's really a joggle gym. We may go up, we may go sideways, we may go around, we may ride the swing for a while. Some of us, we go have babies, so maybe we want to be on the side for a little bit, then we come back in. But don't be afraid to come back in. Because all of us in life, we have three choices. You can give up, you can give in, or you can give it all you got. So I encourage you today to give it all you got and keep on reinventing yourself. Have that courage.